I am Jarvis, your storyteller. Welcome to the Science Fiction Exploration. If you like the story, please subscribe to our channel. The deep space research vessel Horizon drifted silently through the Carina Nebula's outer reaches, its powerful sensors probing the darkness for signs of the anomaly that had drawn them to this remote sector. Commander Alina Reyes stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling cosmic gases that painted the void in shades of purple and blue. 20 years of deep space exploration hadn't dulled her wonder at the universe's beauty, but today something felt different. Wrong. Commander, Lieutenant Raj Patel's voice crackled through the ship's comm system. We're picking up unusual energy signatures at bearing 47. Multiple objects approaching at sublight speed. Alina straightened, her hand automatically reaching for the tactical display. Classification. Unknown, ma'am, but they're not following any known flight patterns. Organic movement almost. Desperate. The word sent a chill down Alina's spine. In 2 decades of exploration, she'd learned to trust her instincts, and right now every nerve in her body was screaming danger. Sound general quarters. I want all hands at stations and shields at maximum. The Horizon's corridors filled with the low pulse of the alert system as the crew rushed to their posts. Alina made her way to the bridge, her mind racing through possibilities. The Carina Nebula was supposed to be empty, a scientific curiosity and nothing more. No colonies, no outposts, no traffic. She entered the bridge just as the first visual contact appeared on the main screen. Her breath caught in her throat. Ships, if you could call them that. They looked more like crystalline sculptures, delicate spires and sweeping curves that somehow moved through space with grace despite their apparent fragility. Dozens of them, no, hundreds, all fleeing from something beyond the nebula's edge. Life signs, Alina demanded, sliding into her command chair. Dr. Victor Novick, the ship's xenobiologist, hunched over his console, his weathered face illuminated by scrolling data. Thousands, Commander. Humanoid, but definitely not human. Their biological signatures are fascinating, almost crystalline like their ships. They're broadcasting, Lieutenant Patel reported, his dark fingers dancing over his console. Multiple frequencies, all bands, translation matrix is having trouble, but they're getting it now. A voice filled the bridge, alien yet unmistakably filled with terror. Please, help us, they come, they devour. We are the Zarkari, and we beg sanctuary from those who might hear us. The Nexide swarm approaches. Please, help us. Alina felt the weight of command settle onto her shoulders like a physical thing. First contact situations were delicate enough, but this? Refugees fleeing from an unknown threat, begging for help? There were protocols, procedures, but none of them quite covered this scenario. Ma'am, Security Chief Wei Zhang's voice was tense. Long-range sensors are picking up something else. Beyond the refugee fleet, it's massive. The main screen shifted, and Alina's blood ran cold. A vast dark mass was moving through space, consuming everything in its path. Not ships, but creatures, if such a word could apply to the horrors she was seeing. Biomechanical monstrosities that seemed to defy physics, their bodies a nightmare fusion of organic matter and machine. The Nexoid, Dr. Novick whispered, his voice filled with both fear and scientific fascination. They're unlike anything we've ever encountered. Some kind of collective consciousness, perhaps, or a hive mind. Commander, Patel interrupted, the refugee ships are asking permission to approach. Their lead vessel systems are failing. They won't survive much longer out there. Alina stood, her decision crystallizing. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for centuries, imagining grand diplomatic exchanges or technological revelations. Instead, they got this, a desperate cry for help in the darkness of space. Whatever she decided next would set the course not just for her crew, but potentially for all of human civilization. Open a channel to Earth Command, she ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. Priority 1, then begin coordinating with the lead refugee vessel for emergency docking procedures. Dr. Novick, I want medical teams standing by. Chief Zhang, maintain weapon locks on both the refugee fleet and that. Swarm, we help, but we're not being stupid about it. As her crew rushed to comply, Alina watched the crystalline ships draw closer, their desperate occupants seeking salvation from humanity. Behind them, the dark mass of the Nexoid swarm grew larger, an approaching storm that threatened to engulf them all. She didn't know it then, but this moment would be remembered in history as the point where everything changed. The day humanity had to choose between mercy and survival, between helping strangers and protecting their own. The day that would eventually lead them down a path none could have predicted. The Horizon's docking bays opened like welcoming arms, and the first of the Zarkari ships began their approach. Elena Reyes watched, knowing that she had just committed humanity to a course of action that couldn't be undone. Whatever came next, there would be no turning back. The stars watched in silence as history turned on this single moment of choice, this one act of mercy that would eventually reshape the galaxy in ways both glorious and terrible. The future was rushing toward them all, carried on crystalline wings and shadowed by a swarm of nightmares. Admiral Marcus Chen stood at the window of his office on Luna Base, watching Earth gleam like a sapphire in the black void. The holographic displays surrounding his desk painted his face in a harsh red glow, emergency reports from across human space, all demanding immediate attention. His finger traced the rim of an empty coffee cup as he processed the latest transmission from the Horizon. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice grave. Commander Reyes' hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. "Admiral, the Zarkari refugees number over 10,000. Their ships are failing and the Nexoid swarm." She paused, composure cracking slightly. "Sir, I've never seen anything like it. They're not just destroying everything in their path, they're consuming it, converting matter into more of themselves. The Zarkari say they've already lost 15 systems." The recording ended, leaving Marcus alone with the weight of the decision before him. Humanity had barely colonized a dozen systems, and now they faced a threat that had already devoured more than that. The smart play was obvious. Shut the door, fortify their borders, let the Zarkari serve as a buffer while humanity prepared its defenses. The smart play, the cold play. His comm unit chimed. "Admiral, the Security Council is ready." Marcus straightened his uniform and stepped into the holofield. Instantly, he was surrounded by the projected images of Earth's most powerful leaders, military commanders, corporate executives, and political figures, all linking in from secure locations across human space. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "you've all received the briefing. The situation is unprecedented. We have over 10,000 refugees seeking asylum, and behind them, a threat unlike anything we've encountered." General Diana Blackwood's hologram leaned forward, her cybernetic eye glowing. "With all due respect, Admiral, this isn't our fight. The Zarkari made their choice when they failed to develop proper military capabilities. We can't risk human lives for their mistakes." "They're civilians," Marcus countered. "They're children." "Are not our children," Corporate Director James Morrison interrupted. "The resources required to support 10,000 refugees would strain our colonial infrastructure, not to mention the military assets needed to protect them. The cost-benefit analysis is clear." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. And what happens when the Nexoid finish with the Zarkari? What's to stop them from turning toward human space next? "We'll be ready," Blackwood assured him. "Better to face them on our terms with our forces at full strength than to deplete ourselves trying to save a species that couldn't save themselves." The debate raged for hours. Marcus watched as fear did its work, turning hearts to stone. When the final vote came, it was nearly unanimous. The borders would be closed, the Zarkari would be turned away. Only after the council disconnected did Marcus allow himself to slump in his chair. He reached for his comm unit, knowing the next call would be the hardest of his career. "Commander Reyes," he said when her hologram appeared, "I have your orders." Elena's face was already hardening, as if she could sense what was coming. "Sir." "The Council has spoken. You are to escort the Zarkari vessels out of human space immediately. No exceptions." The silence that followed felt endless. "Sir," Elena finally said, "these people will die." "Those are your orders, Commander." "The children, sir, they have children." Marcus closed his eyes. "I know." "Permission to speak freely." "Granted." "We're better than this." Her voice shook with barely contained emotion. Humanity is better than this. If we turn them away, if we let them die when we could have helped, what are we then? Survivors, Marcus whispered, but the word tasted like ash in his mouth. Sir, Your orders stand, Commander. Chen out. The hologram vanished, leaving Marcus alone with his conscience. He turned back to the window, to the sight of Earth shining in the distance. Humanity's cradle, the birthplace of their species' greatest achievements and most terrible mistakes. His comm unit buzzed again, a priority alert from the long-range sensor network. The Nexoid swarm was moving faster than predicted, their biological ships accelerating at impossible rates. Early projections had given them months before they reached human space. Now it looked like they had weeks. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. They had chosen survival over mercy, pragmatism over principle. But as he watched the alert indicators multiply across his displays, a cold certainty settled in his gut. This was only the beginning. In his mind's eye, he could see the Zarkari ships being turned away, their crystalline vessels limping back into the void. Could imagine their faces as they realized their last hope had rejected them. Could hear their children crying as the swarm drew ever closer. His finger hovered over the comm unit. One call could change everything. One order could rewrite their course. But the weight of responsibility, of duty, held his hand in place. The smart play, the cold play. The necessary play. As if in answer, another alert flashed across his screen. The Nexoid swarm had changed course, moving with terrible purpose toward the fleeing Zarkari ships, and beyond them toward human space. Marcus Chen, Admiral of the United Earth Fleet, guardian of humanity's future, stood alone in his office and watched as the consequences of their choices began to unfold. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity truly was, whether they were the saviors they pretended to be or something else entirely. The weight of that knowledge settled onto his shoulders like a burial shroud, and the stars continued their cold, indifferent watch over them all. The battle klaxons of the UES Horizon wailed through the corridors as Commander Alina Reyes watched the impossible unfold on her tactical display. The Nexoid swarm had caught up with them far sooner than anyone had predicted, their biomechanical ships moving with terrifying speed and purpose. Status of the Zarkari vessels, she demanded, gripping her command chair as another gravitational wave from the approaching swarm rocked the ship. Lieutenant Patel's fingers danced across his console. Failing, Commander. Their engines can't take much more. The crystal ships were never built for this kind of sustained flight. Alina watched as the refugee fleet struggled to maintain formation. Their beautiful crystalline vessels, once so graceful, now looked like wounded birds trying desperately to stay aloft. Behind them, the dark mass of the Nexoid swarm spread across space like an oil slick, consuming everything in its path. Message from the Zarkari flagship, Dr. Novak reported, his voice tight. They're asking us to take their children, just the children. They say they understand we won't help them all, but please, just the young ones. The bridge fell silent. Alina felt the weight of every eye on her, waiting for her decision. Her orders were clear: escort the refugees out of human space, maintain borders, protect their own. But as she watched the tactical display, saw the dozens of life signs flickering out as the weaker Zarkari ships began to fail, something inside her broke. To hell with orders, she whispered, then straightened in her chair. All hands battle stations. Chief Zhang arm all weapons. Lieutenant Patel signal the Zarkari, tell them to get their people to their escape pods. We're going to buy them time. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Alina could see the tension in their movements. They were a research vessel, not a warship. What she was proposing was more than just disobeying orders. It was potentially suicide. Commander, Chief Zhang said softly, the Nexoid ships. Our weapons might not even scratch them. Then we'll scratch harder, Alina replied, her voice steel. Tactical analysis. Zhang's hands moved over his console. Their outer hull appears to be some kind of living metal, regenerates damage almost instantly, but there might be a weakness. Their power signatures suggest some kind of central nervous system. If we could hit that. Plot firing solutions, all batteries. I want everything we've got aimed at those nerve centers. Elena opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the commander. What we're about to do goes against our orders. Anyone who wants to evacuate to the pods, now's your time. No judgment, no consequences, but if you stay. She paused, watching the Nexoid swarm grow larger on the main screen. If you stay, we're going to remind the galaxy that humanity is more than just survival instinct and cold equations. Not a single crew member left their post. The next hours were chaos. The Horizon's weapons blazed, cutting through space with precision born of desperation. They found weak points in the Nexoid biology, places where their living metal couldn't regenerate quite fast enough. Each victory was small, but they added up, creating gaps in the swarm's advance that the Zarkari escape pods used to slip through. But the cost was devastating. The Horizon's shields buckled under repeated attacks, hull breaches spreading across multiple decks. Engineering reported critical damage to the main power core, and still the swarm came, endless and hungry. Pods away, Patel shouted over the sound of straining metal. 87% of Zarkari children successfully evacuated. They're heading for the emergency coordinates. Elena nodded, ignoring the blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. Signal the fleet, tell them. She was cut off as another impact rocked the ship. Commander, Dr. Novik's voice was urgent. The Nexide ships, they're changing. The ones we damaged. They're adapting, learning from our attacks. Elena watched in horror as the swarm's ships began to shift, their living metal reconfiguring to protect the weak points they'd discovered. What had worked minutes ago was now useless, and the Horizon's weapons splashed harmlessly off their evolved defenses. New contact, Patel's voice cracked. Multiple signatures, it's the fleet, UES Thunderchild leading. The main screen lit up as human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their weapons already firing. Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge. Commander Reyes, get your people out of there. We'll handle this. Sir, Elena started, but he cut her off. You've done enough, Commander, more than enough. But now it's time for the rest of humanity to remember who we are. Get those children to safety. That's an order you can follow. The Horizon limped away from the battle zone, her engines struggling to maintain power. Behind them, humanity's warships engaged the Nexoid swarm in earnest, their advanced weapons tearing into the biomechanical horrors with terrible efficiency. But Elena couldn't shake what she'd seen, how quickly the Nexoid adapted, how they learned from each encounter. This wasn't just a battle. It was first contact between two species that would reshape each other through conflict, a war that would force both sides to evolve or die. In the ship's medical bay, as doctors treated the wounded, Elena found herself standing over a small group of Zarkari children. Their crystalline bodies caught the light, sending rainbow patterns dancing across the walls. One of them looked up at her with eyes that held both terror and hope. You saved us, the child said through the translator. Why? Elena knelt down, meeting those alien eyes. Because it's who we are, or at least, it's who we're supposed to be. The ship shuddered as another gravitational wave washed over them, a reminder that the war was just beginning. But as Elena watched the Zarkari children, saw their resilience in the face of losing everything, she understood something fundamental about both their species. Sometimes the greatest acts of humanity came from defying what humans had become, and sometimes saving others meant saving yourself in the process. Admiral Marcus Chen watched the holographic display as another human colony went dark. The Nexoid swarm had adapted faster than anyone could have predicted, learning from each engagement, evolving new defenses and weapons. Conventional tactics were failing. The death toll was mounting. Project Prometheus is ready, sir, General Blackwood reported, her cybernetic eye pulsing with data streams. The bioweapon has been engineered specifically to target the Nexoid's biological components. Early simulations show a 98% effectiveness rate. Marcus stared at the casualty reports scrolling past. And the other 2%. Will likely evolve immunity, Dr. Renata Torres, head of xenobiology, interjected. She stepped forward, her lab coat still stained from her work. "But by then, most of their swarm will be dead. It's our best chance to end this war." The cost, Marcus already knew, but he needed to hear it said aloud. Dr. Tor's face tightened. "Total biological contamination of any system where it's deployed. Nothing organic will survive in those regions for decades, including—" She glanced at the refugee camp feeds showing the remaining Zarkari, "any non-human life forms." The war room fell silent. On the displays, another human colony vanished from the network. The Nexoid advanced, methodical and relentless. "Deploy it," Marcus ordered, his voice hollow. "All designated sectors, full dispersal pattern." The command went out, and humanity crossed a line it could never uncross. The bioweapons' effects were immediate and horrifying. Across multiple star systems, the Nexoid swarm began to die. Their living metal hulls corroded from within as their biological components liquefied. The massive hive ships, once seemingly invincible, drifted like dead leviathans through space. But the price was beyond calculation. Entire systems became biological dead zones. The few surviving Zarkari watched in horror as their ancient homeworlds were rendered uninhabitable. Even planets untouched by the Nexoid were poisoned, their ecosystems collapsed by humanity's desperate gambit. On the bridge of the UES Thunderchild, Marcus received the first victory reports with no joy. Status of the refugee fleet. His communications officer hesitated. "Sir, most of them didn't make it out of the contamination zones in time. The bioweapon. It affected their crystalline biology more severely than we anticipated. Only the ships that Commander Reyes evacuated earlier survived." Marcus closed his eyes. They had won. They had saved humanity, but at what cost to their humanity? A message flashed on his private channel, Commander Reyes requesting an immediate conference. He accepted, and her hologram appeared before him, her face a mask of controlled fury. "Was this the plan all along, Admiral?" she demanded. "Is this why we were ordered to abandon them initially, because you knew what we were going to do?" "Elena, they trusted us," her composure cracked. "The survivors we rescued, they believed in humanity's mercy, and now they've watched us poison their worlds, kill their people." "We had no choice," Marcus cut in, but the words felt like ash in his mouth. "The Nexoid were winning. You saw the projections. Another month, maybe two, and they would have overrun every human system." "There's always a choice." Elena's voice was quiet now, dangerous. "We just chose the easiest one, the one that let us sleep at night by telling ourselves it was necessary." Before Marcus could respond, new alerts flooded his display. The remaining Nexide ships were moving but not retreating. They were changing, evolving again, but differently this time. "Sir," his science officer called out, "the survivors, they're adapting to use the bioweapon. They're incorporating it into their biology, making themselves immune by becoming something new." Marcus watched in horror as the tactical displays updated. The Nexoid hadn't just survived, they were transforming, becoming something even more terrible. And humanity had given them the tools to do it. "Congratulations, Admiral," Elena's hologram said bitterly. "We've just taught them how to be monsters like us." The remaining Nexide ships, now evolved beyond their original form, began to move with new purpose. They were fewer in number, but their new biology made them virtually unstoppable. The bioweapon had culled their species down to its most adaptable members, creating something that could survive anything humanity threw at them. In the refugee camps, the surviving Zarkari children watched the sky with eyes that had seen too much. They had come to humanity for salvation and witnessed instead the birth of a new kind of horror, one born from the intersection of desperation and pragmatism. Marcus Chen, architect of humanity's Pyrrhic victory, stood on his bridge and faced the consequences of their choices. They had won the war, but the price was more than just contaminated worlds and dead allies. They had sacrificed something fundamental about themselves, crossed a moral event horizon from which there might be no return. And in the void of space, the evolved Nexoid swarm gathered its strength, preparing to teach humanity a lesson about the true cost of survival at any price. 5 years after Project Prometheus, the galaxy was a different place. Commander Alina Reyes, now captain of the UES Redemption, stood in the observation deck of New Alexandria Station, watching the streams of ships moving through the quarantine checkpoints. Each vessel had to be thoroughly scanned. No one wanted to risk spreading what remained of the bioweapon, or worse, encountering the evolved Nexoid. "The latest reports from the dead zones are ready, Captain," Dr. Victor Novik said, joining her at the window. Age and guilt had carved deep lines in his face. "Some of the Zarkari worlds are showing signs of recovery. Their crystalline ecology is more resilient than we thought, given another decade." "Another decade won't bring back the dead," Alina replied softly. She turned from the window to face the station's central atrium, where human and Zarkari children played together under the watchful eyes of their caretakers. The survivors had integrated into what remained of human society, their crystalline forms catching the artificial light. "Message from Fleet Command," her wrist computer chimed. "Admiral Chen requests your presence at the council session." Alina's jaw tightened, but she nodded. 5 years hadn't dulled the pain of their choices, but they had taught her that blame was a luxury none of them could afford anymore. The galaxy had changed, and they had to change with it. The council chamber was different now, too. Where once only human leaders had sat, now Zarkari representatives held equal positions. Their presence was a constant reminder of both humanity's failure and its attempt at redemption. Admiral Chen stood at the center of the chamber, older and grayer, but still carrying himself with the same rigid authority. "The Nexoid have been spotted in the Carina sector," he announced without preamble. "They're different. The evolutionary changes we triggered have stabilized into something new." Holographic images filled the air. The biomechanical horrors they remembered had transformed into something almost beautiful in its alien complexity. The new Nexoid forms were sleeker, more refined, their living metal now seamlessly integrated with organic components that pulsed with an inner light. "They're trying to communicate," Alina realized, studying the patterns in their movements. "This isn't an attack formation." "No," Chen agreed. "It's a first contact protocol. They want to talk." The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Zarkari representatives' crystalline forms vibrated with tension, creating a harmonic hum that filled the air. "After everything they did, everything we did," someone demanded, "how can we trust them?" "We can't," Alina said, stepping forward. "But we can learn from them. They evolved because they had to, because we forced them to. Maybe it's time we evolved too." She gestured to the Zarkari children in the atrium below. "Look at what we've built here. 5 years ago, we nearly condemned an entire species to extinction because we were afraid, because we chose pragmatism over principle. But these children, human and Zarkari together, they're showing us another way." "The bioweapon changed everything," Chen added, his voice heavy with the weight of memory. "Not just the Nexoid, not just the worlds we poisoned. It changed us. The question is, did it change us for the better?" The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Nexoid weren't the only ones who had evolved. Humanity had been forced to confront the darkness within itself, to see what it was capable of when pushed to the edge. The alliance with the surviving Zarkari wasn't just about redemption. It was about finding a better way forward. "We're proposing a joint mission," Chen continued. "A delegation of human and Zarkari representatives to meet with the evolved Nexoid, not to fight, not to run, but to understand." Alina felt the weight of history pressing down on them all. This was another moment of choice, another chance to define what humanity would become. "I'll lead the mission," she said, meeting Chen's eyes. "The Redemption's crew knows better than most what's at stake." In the atrium below, a human child helped a young Zarkari build a model of a crystalline ship, their laughter floating up to the council chamber. It was a small thing, that moment of innocent cooperation, but it represented everything they could be, everything they had to become if they wanted to survive in the galaxy they had helped create. The evolved Nexoid waited at the edge of known space, their new forms a testament to the power of change, of adaptation. They had been monsters once, driven by hunger and instinct. Humanity had been monsters too, driven by fear and pragmatism. But evolution wasn't just about survival of the fittest. It was about becoming something more than what you were. As Alina left the council chamber to prepare for the mission, she passed by the station's memorial wall. Thousands of names, human and Zarkari alike, marked the cost of their choices. But beside it, a new wall was growing, the names of children born on New Alexandria Station, names that represented hope, redemption, and the possibility of change. The galaxy watched and waited as humanity prepared to face its greatest challenge yet. Not a war for survival, but a chance to prove they had learned from their mistakes. The dawn after darkness had finally come, and with it, the opportunity to choose a different path. In the vastness of space, the evolved Nexoid continued their patient orbit, waiting to see what humanity would become. And in the hearts of those who had lived through the horror and emerged changed, a new understanding took root. True strength lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the courage to change, to grow, to become something better than what fear had made them.